So now that you've walked into the newsroom and you've got a basic idea of some of the stories that you might put into your show, there's still going to be so many other places that you're going to wind up getting content from to put into your rundown. And so I want to take a look at a bunch of different types of stories, or I'm sorry, a bunch of different sources from where you can get ideas and information from to put in content for your show. So here's one of the things I want you to do, a little exercise. I want you to, as a producer, pick 3 of these stories. Which 3 of these stories would you put in your show? So the first one, Troy Country Club. Yesterday, the club voluntarily reversed a 100-year-old policy which excluded women from being members in the country club, and now they're letting women be in the country club. There's a school bond issue. The school wants to raise money to build more buildings to alleviate overcrowding of students. They're proposing a bond issue in the next election, which is coming up in 1 week, that will raise taxes to get this money. And there's a group called Citizens Against Taxes that are going to hold a rally for the bond issue tonight. There's a Pike County resident is suing the police, saying that the policy of setting up roadblocks leads to entrapment of decent civilians. So they're just because they're setting up roadblocks at intersections or near his home, that he believes that they are falsely grabbing people and issuing tickets and citations. And so he believes that decent civilians are being harassed by them. There was a house fire this morning. The house was burned to the ground. Fortunately, there were no fatalities. The family got out in time, but pretty much everything in the house was lost. The city council voted last night to triple the cost of obtaining a license to own and keep a dog. And so for this case, this license is required for all dog owners within the city limits. If you don't have a license for your dog, then you will receive a fine. There was a suicide this morning when a body was found hanging in Peace Park. Authorities believe that there was no foul play, that this was not murder, it was just suicide. The next one is going to be, there was a robbery this morning at the local GameStop. They got away with an undisclosed amount of cash and games and even a couple of the new PS5s. And then finally, there were a group of veterans, 15 Iraq War veterans, protested on the courthouse today, saying that Alabama's representatives are not doing enough to help extend benefits, mental benefits, psychological, physical benefits for vets. And so as a producer, I want you to think about which 3 stories would you put in your show? Got them figured out? Well, there's really no wrong answer. If my answers were different than yours, that's not a problem, because we are different people and we would produce our show different ways. Now, one of the things I did was I talked to a producer at a local television station and I asked her, pick 3 of these for me and tell me, why did you pick them? And again, there are no wrong answers. And she wound up telling me that she picked the robbery. The reason why she picked it is because this is happening now, and you can get the audience involved if they know information, if they've seen the 2 people shown in the security footage, then help notify the police, so you're able to incorporate the audience into your show. She also chose the country club, with them allowing women now in. And she said, you know, this wasn't it's a really strange story. It's something people weren't really going to expect to see in the news today. So this is something people are going to be talking about around the office or with their friends. And it's what they call a talker. And so also find the first woman who was allowed membership and get an interview from her and get her perspective. And then she talked about the dog licensing was the 3rd one she chose. And she said that many people, especially in the college town, they're going to be college students, may not be able to afford a increase in the fee for the dogs. If that's the case, does that mean that animal shelters are going to be seeing an influx in dogs because people are not able to maintain these fees or pay for these fees? So these were the 3 that she picked, and those were the reasons why. The 3 you picked may be different, and they are all viable and good stories to go with. Now, all these stories came from different sources. So one of the, let's look at many of the places you can get news from. So first off, there's the assignment editor, and they'll have the assignment board up on the wall to help you out. There's news wires. So there's services that provide just news information. They try not to provide a perspective or a bias one way or the other. They want to provide you with just information. So things like the Associated Press, Reuters will have a news wire, and they will also provide you sometimes with little bullet points like, here are the top 10 things to know for today. Producers are also receiving constant emails. So there may be an all producer email coming from the news director or from corporate. The apps or the websites for the TV station may have a tips section. If you have some information that you want to share, go to our website and fill that out. So you might have random people saying, hey, I just saw an accident, or I heard that there may be something going on at the courthouse that you want to go check out. Every week, the city council will usually meet, and they will provide notes for their meeting. And the notes sometimes can come out ahead of schedule, saying, here's the agenda for tonight's meeting. And then after the meeting, they may have revised notes saying, here's what we talked about, here's what we voted on. Now, you've also got phone calls, which kind of work the same as emails. So producers can get phone calls from all types of sources. And for one example is a producer may get a call from a city official who doesn't want their name published. So the city official may say, look, I can't say anything officially about why there was a power outage today, but you might want to call the city engineers about the power outage at this intersection. So then the producer can then call the city engineers and say, hey, I heard there was a strange power outage. Can you tell me some information on it? And they can then relate information or give an interview on that. You've got social media, things like the web page, the phone apps, where people can now send that information in. Twitter, a lot of stations will send out tweets promoting new stories that are coming up. And then likewise, you've also got the corporate office that can send out emails or send out notifications saying, hey, we'd really like for you to cover this story, or we'd like you all to promote something that's coming up a little bit later in our lining of a new show that's coming out. And likewise, it's always good to look at the competition. If you are an ABC station, look at what the NBC or the Fox stations are reporting. Look at their social media, watch their channels, read the newspapers that are being printed, because there's a lot of time that they may pick up a story that you miss. And I've seen many, many times where like a newspaper would cover something in great depth, and that would give a news station a chance to cover it briefly for television. So you can work with newspapers and radio and television to kind of share information and stories. But also it's good to see what the other people are talking about. And I'm going to try not to disappear this time. So one of the things I talked about was social media. There is software and apps out there that can kind of help you quickly glance at what's going on. So this is one for Twitter that you can set up things like messages and mentions, and you can follow specific threads and specific keywords. So in the case of news happening recently of a building collapse in Florida, you could search for that and you could see what people were talking about. You could see if there are residents at the building taking pictures and posting on social media. And so you do have you have social media and all that to help you out. You also have good relationships with authorities. So you can have a good relationship with the city, the mayor's office, the police, the fire department. And a lot of these even companies are going to have what are known as PIOs, public information officers. At Troy University, we call them university relations, but there's also like public relations. The athletic department has athletics and media relations. So if there's a story or something that you want to get some information on, you may want to talk to these public information officers. Sports may say, you know what, there's a athletic player I would love to do a special feature on. So they would wind up talking to these people. So it's always good to have a good relationship with these different types of authorities and people that can give you a wide variety of information to help you out. And so that's just look at a bunch of the sources where producers can get their information from and how they can kind of help correlate that into content they're going to put into their show. So we're going to dive a little bit more into other sources of information in our next section.